We have all been conditioned to believe that the secret to long, flowing hair lies in the products we apply to the very ends of our strands. We spend hundreds of dollars on serums promising to seal split ends, oils claiming to add weight and shine, and conditioners designed to detangle the lengths. We treat our hair exactly the same way we treat a piece of silk or a cashmere sweater. We focus entirely on the fabric. But here lies the fundamental problem, the absolute number one mistake that is killing your progress. Your hair is not a piece of fabric. It is an extension of your biology, and by treating the dead part of the hair with more care than the living part, you are effectively pruning a tree while ignoring the roots. When you look at a strand of hair that has emerged from the scalp, you are looking at keratin that is no longer alive. It has no blood supply, it has no nerve endings, and it certainly has no capacity to repair itself. You can mask its damage, but you cannot fix it. The true magic, the actual biological machinery that determines your hair's density, its thickness, and its ability to grow long, is buried deep beneath the surface. The machinery is the follicle, the machinery is the scalp, yet what do most of us do? We treat our scalp like a nuisance to be washed, or worse, we suffocate it under heavy, pore-clogging oils in a desperate bid for moisture. We are trying to polish the leaves while the roots are starving. Imagine a farmer trying to grow a prize-winning pumpkin. If the farmer spends all day polishing the skin of the pumpkin with wax, but never waters the soil, never checks for pests in the dirt, and never ensures the roots are receiving nutrition, the pumpkin is going to rot before it ever reaches its full size. Your scalp is that soil. It is a living, breathing ecosystem that requires a precise balance of hydration, circulation, and pH to function correctly. When you neglect this environment, the factory shuts down. The follicle goes into survival mode. It conserves energy by shedding hair and refusing to produce new growth. The tragedy is that many of you have the genetic potential for incredible hair, but you are unknowingly suppressing it because you are focusing 100% of your energy on the dead part and ignoring the living part. The fabric fallacy is the single biggest barrier standing between you and the hair you want. You cannot simply comb your way to length. You cannot mask scalp issues with shine sprays. To see real growth, you must completely shift your mindset. You have to stop thinking of your hair as a separate accessory to be styled and start treating it like a living crop that needs to be cultivated from the ground up. Until you respect the scalp as the foundation of growth, every product you buy will be nothing more than a temporary band-aid on a much deeper issue. If correcting your mindset regarding the scalp is the first step, then confronting what is actually sitting on top of it is the second. We need to talk about the suffocation effect. Many of you believe you are doing the right thing by being diligent with your hair care. You are applying your oils, your leave-ins, and your styling creams religiously. You might even be doing the popular oil rinsing techniques where you drench your hair in heavy oils to lock in moisture. While this sounds like nourishment, if these products are not formulated to evaporate or be absorbed by the hair shaft, they have nowhere else to go but down. They migrate to the scalp, and once they arrive, they begin to build up, layer upon invisible layer, until you have created a virtual plastic wrap over your follicles. Think about your skin for a moment. If you were to cover your face with a thick layer of heavy grease and leave it there for days, your pores would clog, your skin would become congested, and it would eventually struggle to breathe. Your scalp is skin, but it is even more sensitive because it is home to thousands of follicles that need to breathe. When you subject your scalp to this constant barrage of heavy butters, silicones, and insoluble oils without properly clarifying, you aren't feeding your hair, you are asphyxiating it. You are choking off the oxygen supply that the follicle desperately needs to function. This buildup creates a barrier that is effectively impenetrable. You might be buying the most expensive nutrient-dense serums or taking the best vitamins on the market, but if there is a layer of chemical residue blocking the entrance to the follicle, none of that nutrition can get in. It creates a feast or famine scenario where the follicle is surrounded by resources, but is starving to death because it simply cannot access them. Furthermore, this buildup traps dirt, dead skin cells, and environmental pollutants right against the opening of the hair root. This creates a breeding ground for bacteria and fungi that are naturally present on the skin, but become problematic when they are trapped and allowed to overpopulate in that dark, oily environment. The body is incredibly intelligent. When the follicle senses that it is being suffocated and blocked, it interprets this as a threat to its survival. It realizes that this environment is toxic and not conducive to supporting a healthy, long strand of hair. So, it does the only thing it can do to protect itself. It begins to shed the hair prematurely and forces the follicle into a resting state. It stops growing to conserve energy until the threat is removed. This is why you feel like your hair is stuck at a certain length or why you see breakage at the root. It isn't growing properly because it can't breathe. Until you strip away that suffocating layer and allow the scalp to finally breathe, you are standing in your own way, blocking the very growth you are trying so hard to achieve. So we have established that product buildup is physically suffocating your follicles, but the biological damage goes even deeper than that. When we neglect the scalp or subject it to harsh, stripping chemicals in an attempt to correct the problem, we trigger a silent and destructive chain reaction. This brings us to the inflammation connection, and I cannot stress this enough. Inflammation is toxic to hair growth. It is the silent killer lurking beneath the surface, undermining your efforts regardless of how many vitamins you take or how gentle you are with brushing. You have to visualize your scalp not just as skin, but as an incredibly sensitive ecosystem that is constantly under surveillance by your immune system. When the scalp is clogged, dry, or irritated by the very products we thought were helping, the body identifies this as a threat. It responds by rushing immune cells and inflammatory chemicals to the area to fix the problem. This is fine for a cut or a scrape, but for hair follicles, chronic inflammation is catastrophic. It creates a hostile environment where the follicle is essentially under constant attack. The biological machinery becomes so distracted by the inflammation that it shuts down non-essential functions. And to the body, hair growth is non-essential when it is fighting a perceived infection or irritation. This state of chronic distress leads directly to a terrifying process known as follicular miniaturization. Imagine a healthy tree that is slowly being choked and poisoned at the roots. Over time, the trunk narrows and the branches become brittle. The exact same thing happens to your hair. The inflammation causes the follicle to physically shrink, constricting the blood supply and strangling the hair root. The strand that eventually emerges from this inflamed, shrunken follicle is not the thick, robust hair you were born with. It is thinner, weaker, and often pigmentless. This is why hair loss is often accompanied by a change in texture. Your hair isn't just falling out. The quality of the hair being produced is deteriorating because the factory is damaged. Perhaps most insidiously, inflammation hacks the hair growth cycle. Your hair naturally goes through phases, a long growth phase and a resting phase. Inflammation disrupts this timeline, forcing the follicle to abort the growth phase prematurely and jump straight to the shedding phase. This means your hair never gets the chance to reach its full-length potential. You are losing hair faster than you can possibly grow it because the biological clock is being sped up by irritation. That slight itch, that bit of redness, that tenderness you feel when you move your hair, those are not minor annoyances. They are distress signals. You are effectively burning down the house from the inside out, and no amount of external conditioning can rebuild a structure that is on fire. Understanding the problem is only half the battle. The other half is knowing exactly how to fix it. If we have been treating our hair like a dead fabric, suffocating the follicles and triggering chronic inflammation, then the solution requires a complete overhaul of our routine. We need to adopt what I call the roots first strategy. This is the fundamental shift from trying to force hair to grow to simply creating the environment where it wants to grow. You have to stop chasing length and start chasing health, because length is merely the byproduct of a healthy scalp. The first step in this strategy is the reset. We need to clear the slate. If you have been using heavy oils and silicones for years, you likely have layers of residue sitting on your scalp that normal shampoo simply cannot touch. You need to incorporate a safe, mechanical exfoliation method for the scalp. This isn't about scratching or irritating the skin. It is about gently dislodging the dead skin cells and product buildup that are choking the follicle. Think of this as aerating the soil in a garden. You are creating space for the follicles to breathe and opening the pathways so that when you apply nutrients, they can actually penetrate the skin surface instead of sliding off. Next, we must manually stimulate the engine. Your scalp has some of the highest blood flow requirements in the body, but because it is at the top of your body, circulation can often be sluggish, especially if we are sedentary. You need to bring fresh, oxygenated blood to the follicles. The most effective way to do this is through daily scalp massage. This isn't just a relaxation technique, it is a biological trigger. Massaging the scalp increases vasodilation, widening the blood vessels and rushing vital nutrients and growth hormones directly to the root. It wakes up dormant follicles and signals to the body that this area is active and important. You are literally warming up the machinery so it can get back to work. Finally, we must balance the microbiome. We have been stripping our scalps with harsh shampoos or clogging them with oils, throwing the natural ecosystem into chaos. We need to treat the scalp with the same respect. We treat our face using ingredients that soothe, balance pH, and support the good bacteria that keep the bad fungi in check. Whether it is through targeted scalp serums or gentler cleansing routines, the goal is homeostasis. When you combine clear pathways, increased circulation, and a balanced environment, you don't need to beg your hair to grow. You simply remove the obstacles and the growth happens on its own.